Hello, Archie Dunlop here with Talking Astrology with Archie. In this video, I'm going to be looking at the week starting on Monday, September the 16th, 2024. And I'll be looking at this week from a perspective of both astrology and the I Ching. Now, in terms of the astrology, I'm going to be just looking at the main events of the week. I'm not looking at the 12 signs, just the main events and how I think they could impact us. And I won't be going into any great detail. I know there are some important events. On Tuesday, Wednesday, we've got a partial eclipse, and I'll certainly be mentioning that and sort of speculating on the kind of impact it might have. And right at the end of the week, we've got the autumnal equinox. I suppose if you're in the southern hemisphere, it's kind of a spring equinox, but I suppose the northern hemisphere we sort of call it the spring equinox, and I suppose there's a northern hemisphere bias there. Now, I'm not going to go into any huge detail about these events simply because I'm going to be covering them in my daily videos over the following week. So then there's going to be the I Ching, and I will be looking at the week from the perspective of this oracle, and my reading will be divided up into 4 sections. It will be a general reading, then money, then career, and then relationships. As far as my topic is concerned, I want to look at Springfield, Ohio, because Springfield, Ohio has been very much in the news. There is what Donald Trump has said. Donald Trump talked about immigrants eating family pets, and of course this has got there's a huge furore about this, and some will say that this just shows what Trump is like. He just falls to this lie and he pushes this on the American people, and he just looks stupid, and it's one of the reasons he lost the debate, and it's one of the many reasons why Kamala Harris is going to win. Of course, there is an alternative narrative, because with Trump, somehow he gets away with things that other people don't get away with. Maybe if anyone else had said that immigrants are eating family pets when it's not true, if anyone else had said that, that would be the end. But maybe with Trump, it's different. There is this counter argument that's saying, but by doing this, by saying something so extreme, then he's focusing attention on Springfield, Ohio, and he is also attracting attention on the immigration issue. And so what's happened over the last few years in Springfield, Ohio, is that the population of the city has massively increased as a result of an influx of immigrants from Haiti. I mean, I think the town, I don't know how many people are in Springfield, Ohio. What is it? 60, 70,000. I'm not quite sure. But then an extra 15,000 Haitian immigrants have turned up, and that's had a huge impact on services. Of course, some business owners are quite happy about it, but apparently they're good workers. But still, by saying something like this, saying something extreme that may not actually have been true, he may have been focusing on a problem and maybe getting votes. So that is a possibility. And so it's not a clear-cut thing. I don't know. I'm not giving you an answer. I'm not telling you how it's going to impact Trump's campaign. I'm just trying to be objective about this, by the way. And so what I wanted to do was look at the horoscope of Springfield, Ohio. It was hard work finding the exact date on which the city was incorporated. There are sort of alternative dates, and there's the dates when the city council met for the first time. We know that, that was May the 18th, 1850. There was a decision to apply for it to be a city. I think the vote went through on March the 21st, 1850. And so as far as when it was actually incorporated as a city, there was a reference on a Google search to some archive which indicated that it was actually May the 14th. And I think that seems plausible because, you had May the 14th, it's incorporated as a city, and then the city council meets for the first time on May the 18th. So I'm taking a bit of a risk here because I haven't got any clear source here for when Springfield was incorporated. I mean, it was certainly in May 1850, but there was one indication that it was actually May the 14th, 1850. So I'm going to set up the chart for May the 14th, 1850, and if I've got that wrong, my apologies, but it's the only reference to incorporation with a date on it which I could find. So I will be looking at the horoscope of Springfield, Ohio, and looking at some past events in Springfield because it's got quite a difficult history. Particularly, there are a couple of events going on in the beginning of the 20th century, which I don't think the city should be particularly proud of. But let me first look at what's happening this week astrologically, and just a reminder that if you like this video, I'd be very happy, very grateful if you were to indicate that you actually did like this video by pressing the like button. And if you're not subscribed, I'd be super grateful if you were to subscribe. And here is the chart of the beginning of the week. I'm just setting it for New York. I'm not going to give you an alternative chart for Australia or Sydney, Australia, because it's just a general idea about where the planets are. And turning to the horoscope of not Springfield, Ohio, that comes later. So looking at this chart, at the beginning of the week, you can see that the moon is at late Aquarius. It's about to move into Pisces. This is a chart for the very beginning of a week, sort of midnight on Monday, September the 16th, New York time. You can see that the moon is moving from Aquarius into Pisces. And we've got the sun in Virgo, and so that is a reminder that we've got this run up to a full moon, and there is going to be a partial eclipse, and that partial eclipse on Tuesday the 17th, Wednesday the 18th, depending on where you are, is probably the dominant feature of the week. And it's when we had a new moon on September the 3rd, the moon was waxing, and now it's hit peak, and perhaps we can see the truth. We can see the reality of things. With this debate, it really does depend who you look at. I've seen lots of videos saying that, in fact, this debate is going to work well for Trump, but he didn't lose it at all. I mean, I'm sure he did lose it. But what impact is it going to have on polling? I think it's going to be a fairly critical point in the campaign. This new moon, this full moon, is something. It's something that shows us the truth, and that is the nature of full moons. They show us the truth. They show us the reality of the situation. Perhaps beforehand, we don't really know where it's going. And now it becomes clear. And so, we had the debate just before, on the 10th, I think, which was just before it was around the time of the sort of first quarter of the moon. I mean, when was the first quarter? So the moon's first quarter, the first quarter of the moon, which is where we start to see the positive side of the moon. The first quarter was on September the 11th. So in the run-up to that first quarter, we had the debate, and perhaps that was what the lunar cycle was about, if you're into American politics. But now we start to see what the implications of the debate actually were at the full moon. I suppose that's when all the polls start to come out. So that might be one aspect of the full moon, but it's not just about politics. It's about us as individuals, and I think many of us might find the truth, or we have the opportunity to find the truth, but are we going to accept the truth? Are we going to take on board the truth? Well, that's another matter, isn't it? And some of us might find it difficult to deal with the truth directly. So in a sense, that is up to us. Now, maybe we shouldn't get too excited about this full moon eclipse. And it is partial. It's not an exact full moon eclipse. So its influence may not be complete. It's not like it's a total eclipse. But I will be looking at this eclipse in further detail in a couple of days' time. Now, at the same time as this eclipse was happening, Mercury will be making an opposition to Saturn. So, in fact, on Wednesday we've not just got a partial eclipse of a partial eclipse of the moon, but we've also got Mercury opposition Saturn. And Mercury opposition Saturn can be about reality. Again, like the full moon, it's about reality. It's seeing things for what they really are. Mercury opposition Saturn can be a little bit negative. We see that things may not be entirely great. And also with Mercury opposition Saturn, there may be a certain tendency to see things perhaps in the worst possible light. So when we evaluate the world around us and we reach conclusions, we should perhaps try not to be too negative. And maybe we can perhaps ask too many questions, and that's maybe something that we need to avoid. Then as you move into the week, as you move into Thursday, you've got the Sun at 23 Virgo is trine Uranus. That's quite a nice aspect. And it's actually starting to make a grand trine with Pluto, because you've got the Sun at sort of around 27 Virgo is trine Uranus, and it's starting to make a trine to Pluto. So by the end of the week, we do have this grand trine energy, and certainly Thursday, Sun trine Uranus, that could really start to stir things up, and we can feel maybe a sense of excitement, but with a grand trine in Earth signs forming, we should be careful what we wish for, because we're going to have, by the end of the week, Sun on the Uranus-Pluto midpoint, and that might be quite extreme. There might be extreme events. Let's just see what Reinhold Ebertin says about Sun on Uranus-Pluto midpoint. So he says, Sun on Uranus-Pluto midpoint. Ebertin says, the urge for independence and freedom, untiring creative work, the tendency to make the highest demands on one's physical energy, strong emotional tensions, overexcitement of the nerves, a breakdown, a catastrophe. So that might be a sense of what the end of a week may feel like. Not for everyone, but tensions are going to rise. And I'm not saying it's going to be a catastrophe. That's just one approach to it. But grand trines are about things moving quickly and things moving easily. And just because things move easily doesn't mean that they move well. So we don't want to get caught up in things, caught up in events that might run out of control. On Friday, we get a kind of quite interesting aspect, because we've got Saturn quintile Uranus. So Saturn and Uranus will be 72 degrees apart, 1/5 of the circle. So Saturn-Uranus it's quite a tense aspect, and many of us perhaps are going to be feeling tense, and I suppose that feeds into the fact that we do have this grand trine in Earth signs forming, but we may feel that we just have to do something. We may feel deep down that something has to move, something has to shift, and we may want to consciously create change, consciously break through something that is holding us back. Then the end of the week, over the weekend, we've got Sun opposition Neptune and Mercury square Jupiter. The Sun, of course, will be making that opposition to Neptune right at the end of Virgo, as it's getting ready to move into Libra. And with that Sun opposition Neptune, yeah, we may get confused. People may get confused. There may be a certain amount of uncertainty in the world. Where are things going? And also a tendency perhaps to jump to conclusions with Mercury square Jupiter. Mercury is the mind, it's ideas moving quickly, perhaps jumping to conclusions. And then right at the end we've got the autumnal equinox, the beginning of spring, and that is an important change. Of course, this autumnal equinox is going to be really tied up with Neptune because, the Sun will be at 0 degrees Libra. Neptune is, fairly close to 0 degrees Aries. So that may have an impact on how we feel. But as it's right at the end of the week, this autumnal equinox, maybe it's more about the week after, and I will be looking in detail at the equinox at a later stage. And now I want to turn to Springfield, Ohio, and I tried my best to find a date for its incorporation, and the best I could come up with is this, May the 14th, 1850. I found one source which was a reference to another source, and the link didn't go through, but I feel reasonably confident that May the 14th, 1850 is the day that Springfield was incorporated, but maybe I'm 80% sure. But I'm pretty sure that, or pretty certain, that it was certainly around May the 14th, 1850, and I would guess that whenever it was incorporated, the planets will be pretty close to where they are in this chart. Of course, I don't know what time it was incorporated, but this is the chart, and in many respects, it's quite a difficult chart. And when you see difficulties in a chart, I do think that with the charts of countries and cities, as time goes on, the charts do become stronger, and we have the time of incorporation, we had a Uranus-Pluto conjunction. And a Uranus-Pluto conjunction, I suppose, is about the desire for freedom, the desire for change, and it's tied in with Mars. And that Mars square Uranus, Mars square Pluto is somewhat dramatic. There is a certain sense of violence there, of not being comfortable, and particularly with Mars right at the end of Cancer. I think we can be pretty certain that Mars in the chart of Springfield, Ohio, is in the last degree of Cancer. I'm fairly confident about that. And Uranus and Pluto don't move much, so this is a city with Mars square Uranus, Mars square Pluto, and that can be quite violent, and it can be extreme. So that's perhaps not particularly easy. And okay, there's also Saturn in Aries. Saturn doesn't work very well in Aries. There may be a certain sense of powerlessness, events going on which Springfield can't really deal with, and also frustration. And that may just be a sense of what's happening in Springfield. And Springfield, obviously I don't know very much about Springfield, but it did attract a lot of industries, and then it got deindustrialized, and it got really hit by the recession, or with the 2008 crash. It was really hammered, and now of course Springfield has been in the news, and you've had people talking angrily at city council meetings, talking about services collapsing. And of course, you've got this influx of 15,000 immigrants from Haiti. Now, does this chart work? Now, I mentioned the fact that in the past there had been two really difficult events in Springfield's history. One event, or both of these events, were essentially race riots, and in 1904, on March the 7th, 1904, there was a lynching. So some African-American man who was accused of killing a policeman, and he was taken into custody. And there was a mob formed, and they dragged him out, and they shot him, and they hung up his body. And so this has happened. And also what's happened, and of course what also happened in it was quite a common thing in, certainly in the South. Of course, Ohio is not the South, but for the black part of the city to be ransacked and to be set on fire. And again, this happened in Springfield in 1904. So as far as what was going on in 1904, and this is a check to see if the chart works. So if we take Springfield's chart, 1850 chart is in the middle, and at the time of this lynching, Uranus was at 2938 Sagittarius. So there you can see Uranus making an exact quincunx aspect to Springfield's Mars. So I think that Mars at 2943 is quite sensitive. And also you had Saturn, there was transiting Saturn was at 15 Aquarius, and transiting Saturn was on the Mercury-Saturn midpoint. And so Mercury-Saturn, I mean, it's about bad news, it's about, I suppose, negativity, and it doesn't, of course, do the city's reputation much good. But I think most importantly, in terms of a 1904 chart, it does seem that Uranus quincunx the city's Mars, making a 150-degree aspect to Mars, it really did stir things up. And that was what was going on at the time of the lynching in 1904. In 1906, there were more race riots. I don't think there wasn't a lynching in 1904, but I think there was a fight which had a racial element. And again, as in 1904, the black area of the city was attacked and ransacked, and people were made homeless. And the 1904 event, which was here it was on February the 26th, 1906, and from an astrological perspective, this does show up more powerfully. There you can see there was a Moon-Mars conjunction at 16 Aries on that day. I mean, I don't know exactly where the moon was. I don't know when the rut exactly happened. And so that Moon-Mars conjunction is certainly having an impact on Springfield, Ohio's chart. So there is Springfield, Ohio's Saturn at 16 Aries, and you can see Mars was exactly on Springfield, Ohio's natal Saturn, and so Mars is stirring up all the frustrations in the city. I mean, I don't know exactly what was happening in 1906, but I'm sure that there were other issues going on in the city, and this fight was a catalyst for how the people in Springfield were feeling. And you also had at this time, you had the transiting Sun was conjunct Springfield's Neptune. You know, people, I suppose, reaching the wrong conclusions. Also, it could just be the mob with Neptune. Maybe there is a sense of the mob in Springfield, Ohio. People just responding to events and not really thinking it through, and that sun conjunct Neptune, and it was a North Node return approximately. So 1906 was a difficult time. So you've got these two events at the beginning of the century, at the beginning of the 20th century, which do seem to confirm the chart. And then we have Springfield, Ohio hitting the news because of the debate. So Donald Trump mentions Springfield, Ohio, talking about people eating pets, and of course the city manager of Springfield, Ohio says it is not true, and as far as I can see, everyone is saying it's not true. I mean, no one is saying it is true, although I suppose you could say that we're in a post-truth era where the actual truth doesn't matter. It's the truth about what something actually means, and it's maybe some people would say that, oh well, it's symbolically true, that it is sort of a metaphor for what's going on. I mean, that's how people seem to be feeling at the moment, or some people seem to be feeling at the moment. And here is a debate, and this is what was happening to Springfield at the time of the debate, when the debate started. So Pluto has just gone into Capricorn. So Pluto is at 2952 Capricorn at the time of the debate. So Pluto was exactly opposition Springfield's Mars. And Pluto was, and Springfield actually in its natal chart has Mars square Uranus, Mars square Pluto. So Mars square Pluto, there is something under the surface in Springfield. And as we saw with Mars square Uranus, I suppose you could relate to the events at the beginning of the 20th century, with the lynching and the riots. And Pluto is bringing it all up. It's highlighting it all over again. And it is difficult and it is troubling. And so you could argue that what Trump has done, or what Trump did by talking about the killing of the supposed killing of family pets, is he stirring something up here? Because Springfield, Ohio, as I said, as you can see, has a very dark history. And so Pluto does relate to that rather dark history. And also at the time of the debate, Saturn, transiting Saturn, was at 1549 Pisces. And so there is Springfield's Mercury at 1525 Gemini. So Springfield's Mercury in Gemini was being hit by transiting Saturn. And so that is very difficult. Saturn square Mercury, I suppose the city feeling sort of bad about itself, and how the city tries to communicate, it's all sort of messed up. And so I think you can see with Pluto opposition Mars, Pluto square Pluto, it is a difficult transit for the city. And it's just hard. And I think this perhaps shows that that the chart is working. But what about Trump? What does Springfield mean for Trump? And how does Springfield relate to Trump and his ambition to be re-elected President of the United States? And there are two stories, or two narratives, about how Trump's comments about immigrants eating dogs or cats, I can't remember the precise quotation, eating family pets. There are two narratives about what it actually means. There is one narrative saying this just demonstrates that Trump is an idiot, that he's not fit to be President of the United States. That is one narrative. The other narrative is that it may not be true, but it has still highlighted a problem. And it has highlighted the fact that there is massive immigration. And I suppose there are voters that feel threatened by immigration, even though there is an argument to say that the immigration into Springfield, Ohio, has been actually good for the economy. Maybe not so good for Haiti, by the way, because one of the problems about this immigration is that these immigrants from Haiti tend to be the more educated parts of the population. And so, in a way, the United States, you could say, was stealing them from Haiti. I mean, I saw this interview I was reading this interview, for example, with a man from Haiti who was a doctor in Haiti, but his medical qualifications weren't his weren't recognized in the US, so he's working as a nurse. So he's an example of someone educated from Haiti, comes to America, and the United States has got an understaffed health system. So you can see how potentially America could benefit from these immigrants. And I sort of, I was told about, some steelworks and how, I don't know if it was a steelworks, but some factory in Springfield, Ohio, and the owner was saying how these they're really good workers. They don't take fentanyl. They're not on drugs. They turn up to work and they do a good job. So you can see this in different ways. But there are many Americans who feel very threatened by these immigrants in Haiti, and they may be legal immigrants. I don't know perhaps for details, but it highlights the immigration problem. And it highlights the concern about illegal immigrants on the border, even if it's got nothing to do with the border. So you can see how potentially his comment about immigrants eating family pets in Springfield, Ohio, could, in a way, benefit him simply because it highlights what he was talking about. And perhaps the liberal media don't get that. But I don't know. I'm not a pollster. But as far as Trump's chart is concerned, so there's Trump's chart, and here is Springfield, Ohio, on the outer wheel. Now, Springfield, Ohio is a Taurus. It's born when the sun was in Taurus, or it was incorporated when the sun was in Taurus at around 23 Taurus. So Springfield, Ohio's sun is exactly on Donald Trump's midheaven. It's about how he presents himself. And it's not a lot to go on, but I'm thinking that might be some evidence that his comment about people in Springfield immigrants eating family pets, it may be a lie, but at the same time, it's not necessarily going to do him any harm. It certainly puts him in the news. It puts the issue of immigration in the news. It puts the issue of illegal immigration in the news, even if it's got nothing to do with illegal immigration. And there is the sun on his midheaven, giving him prominence. So there's something about that city that certainly puts Trump in the news. Does it put him in the news in a way that works to his favour? My hunch is that the answer may actually be yes, but I don't know. So those are some thoughts about Springfield, Ohio. There's not much else to say. I don't have a time of incorporation for Springfield. I'm not even entirely comfortable that I've got the day of incorporation right, but it's certainly something to work on. So now I want to switch to the I Ching. So just a reminder, if you don't want your I Ching done, you can stop watching this video. You don't have to watch this video. This oracle only applies to those watching this video. If you're not watching, it doesn't apply to you. So you don't have to hang around. Of course, so if you really, it's an important point, because you don't know what I'm going to say. You don't know what my forecast for the I Ching is going to be. It might be positive. It might be negative. You don't know. And if you're curious, then you're going to watch something, and then you're going to get caught up in the forecast, and that's maybe not something you want to do. Okay, so I'm going to start my forecast now. So I asked the question: what is the week starting on Monday, September the 16th, going to be like for those watching the I Ching section of this video? And just remember, I'm going to be making my forecast using 4 sections: general, money, career and business, and finally relationships. So, having asked this question, the first hexagram I got was hexagram number 59, which is dispersion. Dispersion represents a storm. It represents everything getting turned upside down. For some reason, this hexagram 59 comes up a lot. I don't know why, maybe something about me. But with 59, there is a sense that things could be turned upside down. And when we see the storm, when we see water everywhere, flooding, it seems bad. It seems to be something really very disturbing. But I don't think actually it needs to be disturbing at all, because what a storm does is it shakes things up, and it actually can help move us along. And we've got two lines moving here, so the second line from the bottom moves, and there is an indication here that events happen that we don't fully understand, and we just don't know what's going on, and we do get moved along, and we get moved along, and we think it's bad, but actually we can make rapid progress. It's like, I suppose, being on a river and there's a storm and the river is fast flowing. Yeah, there's always this danger that the boat gets overturned, but we are getting to our destination extra quick because of the tide. And it seems that if we have a positive attitude to begin with, as the storm starts to hit, as things start to get complicated, as the weather moves into turmoil, at least the weather in terms of what's happening, maybe socially, politically, in our community, in our home. As the weather seems to become difficult and stormy, we can actually benefit from this. And we move on, and we get the fourth line moving. And with the fourth line moving, it's very much about other people around us, and we perhaps need to completely change how we look at the people around us. There's a certain danger, I think, of factionalism. At least there has been in the past. You had different groups of people with their own particular interests, and with this storm, things change. We have to actually look at the people around us in a completely different way. And we need to say that, well, we have to move beyond factions, and we have to perhaps, get away from people who are completely focused on their own interests. But at the same time, we can also look for common ground, and perhaps in response to some kind of mini crisis, people will come together, and we can start to see the similarities between people rather than the differences. And I think that is going to be entirely positive. And so that's another benefit of this storm. It helps to move things on socially, but it can end up being quite exhausting. And that leads to the second hexagram. And so the second hexagram is hexagram 12, which is standstill. And suddenly, having sorted all these things out, trying to work out what's happening, then really nothing moves. It's maybe it's just because people are exhausted. There's just been a lot of energy has been used up, and there's just perhaps nothing left. And maybe standstill is not about anything too difficult, or we're not talking about evil necessarily, although that is an interpretation of standstill, that heaven has withdrawn because this earth here is too corrupt, and heaven has just shut the gates. It's like the hatch to the loft has been firmly shut. That may be one interpretation of standstill, but I think, given it's just come straight after dispersion, I think that it's all about a lot of turmoil, and there really isn't much energy left. And so perhaps by the end of a week, we really shouldn't be trying to achieve very much because there's nothing more to be achieved, and maybe we need to take on board what has actually happened, and so that might be how it works. So let me now look at things from the perspective of money. So from a financial perspective, if money is of interest to you, then I think that you maybe feel quite uncertain about what is happening financially. There are bills coming in perhaps, there are perhaps opportunities at the same time, and you may just lose touch with your finances, and it may be difficult for you to actually think through. It may be difficult to think through what actually you own and what you owe, and it all may become rather chaotic. But I don't think there's any need to panic. It's about sort of keeping your head, and it may actually be that an event happens which doesn't seem to be particularly positive. It may be dramatic, it may be disconcerting, but this event may at some level move you on and may actually create financial opportunities. So you've got to be sort of open-minded, and you've got to keep a level head to be able to actually see and understand these opportunities. And then, money can also relate to other people and financial pressures, and it may be that there are arguments about money between different people. It may be in your family or maybe at work, but people have different ideas about what should be done with money, and what you need to do is make sure somehow that everyone is able to see things from a similar viewpoint. It's not a good idea to be in a situation where there are different views on money, because that's not going to help. It's going to get nowhere, and it's going to cost money. So perhaps in response to dramatic events, or they may not be so dramatic, but in response to a changing environment, people can perhaps see that their best interests lie in cooperation, not factionalism. And then towards the end of the week, because we've got two moving lines, everything transitions to hexagram 12, which is standstill. It may feel that just things are not moving. You've tried your hardest to sort of get some agreement about money. You've tried your hardest to sort of understand what's going on. You had plans, but although you've tried very hard to find agreement is actually difficult. It's really, in the end, it may be actually difficult to achieve, and you have to take things as they are. If people are not agreeing about money, then you have to accept it. If you find in terms of a standstill, it may be possible that you've been trying to get hold of some money, or you thought this might be the week, but it just doesn't happen. Maybe you're looking for a pay rise, maybe you were trying to get a refund, and if you haven't sorted out by the middle of the week, it may be that you're just not going to sort it out this week, and maybe you're just going to have to wait until next week. Turning to career and business, I think things do start on maybe quite a difficult note, because we've got this dispersion, the idea of a storm. When you look at perhaps your job or your business, things do seem a little bit stormy, and it's difficult to work out where things are moving to next, and things could move quickly, and it may be though that you can take advantage of this situation. So one person's chaos is another person's opportunity, and so if you're trying to achieve something at work, then you may actually be able to make fast progress because of external events. Remember, it's like being on a boat and suddenly the tide gets faster. It's kind of scary when the tide gets fast, but at least you're getting to your destination quicker. So if you can get to your destination without sinking, that is really good. And so there may be a sense in which you can take advantage of outside instability, and that could certainly be useful, regardless, whether you've got a job, whether you're running your own business. I suppose also, maybe if you're looking for a job, it may be that you're uncertain, your potential employer's uncertain. It's all a bit difficult, but you keep pushing, and you can present yourself perhaps as an island of stability. So by utilizing some of the chaos around you, particularly at the beginning of the week, that might be actually quite useful if you are looking for a new job. And this hexagram dispersion does move, though, and it does move to a standstill. So I'm thinking that at some stage in the week, things will come to a standstill. You make some progress, but it is increasingly difficult. And one reason it might be difficult is because different people have different ideas. And in the first hexagram dispersion, the fourth line moved, and that was about factionalism, different people having their own agendas. And yeah, it would have been very nice if you could bring people together and get them to look beyond their own agendas. But given this final hexagram of standstill, maybe that's something you're not going to be able to achieve. People are going to be very fixed on their own personal interests, and they're going to want to hold on to that for as long as they possibly can. And so finding compromise and getting people to work together, certainly by the end of the week, is going to be really hard. And so perhaps you should just accept the situation that things aren't just going to move. And I suppose if you're looking for new work or for new business, then try to sort it out at the beginning of the week. By the end of the week, it just may not be quite so easy. And finally, there is relationships. So relationships, they are all up in the air. It's difficult to know what people want, and you may be confused about the nature of your relationship to another person, regardless about what the relationship is about. It could be romantic, it could be a business partnership, whatever it is, it could be a friend. Regardless, there is a confusion about this, and relationships may be strongly influenced by external events. It's not just about two people and a link between two people. It's also about what's going on outside the relationship, and things going on outside the relationship could have a big impact. And of course, that's going to be particularly the case if it's a new relationship or you're dealing with someone that you maybe don't know particularly well. And so that's something to watch out for, but it needn't be so much of a problem if you can have a positive attitude. And it may be that because of external events, certain relationships can actually move quite quickly, and you might very quickly find out what someone is like and what their true nature is, and that may allow you to evaluate them very quickly. And in any relationship, it's important that no one has a secret agenda, that you and the other person are working towards the same goal. Because there's some danger that you and the person you're with may have completely different priorities. And it's just very important that you sort out those priorities and that you are able to have shared priorities. And the question is, are you going to be able to do that? It may be you can. Maybe you can find some set of shared goals which you can all work, which you can both work towards. And if you want the same thing, everything will be fine. But it's going to be tough maintaining this sense of consensus and a sort of shared destiny, particularly in light of the hexagram which this moves to. And the hexagram this moves to is hexagram number 12, which is standstill. And in terms of relationships, it does indicate that you and someone else have different priorities. And this hexagram standstill, it's coming in the wake of a partial eclipse, because we've got this partial eclipse Tuesday or Wednesday. And so with standstill, it may just be that you're just so aware that you and the other person have different priorities. You try very hard to find shared interests, but as you move into certainly the end of a week, but this eclipse is towards the beginning of a week, it may just be quite obvious that you and this other person, the sort of the main relationship in your life, the main focus on your life, it just is not. It's not happening, and you can see the conflict. The conflict is really very obvious. Okay, it's not conflict as in having a fight. It's conflict in just having different priorities. Now, that's the situation this week, end of the week. I'm not saying anything about next week, so don't take it to heart. And this final hexagram 12 standstill is probably only applying for a few days, the end of a week, but I'm not talking about anything further from this week. So don't worry too much. And that's it. Those are my I Ching forecasts, and I will be going into detail about some of the main aspects of this week, particularly we've got the the equinox at the end of the week. We've got this partial eclipse on Tuesday, Wednesday, and I will be having an in-depth look at those in some videos in a few days' time. But that's the end of this video, and thank you very much for watching. If you like this video, I'd be really happy if you were to indicate that you did indeed like it, and if you're not subscribed, I'd be really happy if you were to subscribe. And if you want to buy me a coffee, there is a link in the description. So thank you very much for watching again, and I will talk to you very soon.